Section 2.1.3 DevOps is not tools. Let's start with a simple question. If your company buys Jenkins, Docker, and Kubernetes, are you doing DevOps? It sounds tempting to say yes, but the real answer is no. Definitely no. This is one of the biggest myths in our industry. The idea that DevOps is something you can install, that it is a platform, a product, a shopping list. It isn't. DevOps is not a product. DevOps is a way of working. It is a concept, a mental model, a culture. This sounds obvious, and yet it's where most organizations still fail. Tools only come later. They are the implementation. They are the how, not the why. And that contrast matters more than most teams realize. Because if you have the how without the why, things may look modern on the surface, but inside, they are fragile. Everyone agrees with this in theory. Very few act on it in practice. Imagine this. A team rolls out a shiny new CI/CD tool. Dashboards look great. Pipelines are running. Everyone feels modern. 6 months later, deployments are still chaotic. Incidents turn into blame games. People are burned out. Why? Because the tool didn't fix the system. It only automated the mess that was already there. If you've worked in more than one company, you've probably seen this pattern already. So what is DevOps really about? At its core, DevOps is about people and flow. It's about breaking the wall between development and operations. It's about shared responsibility, shared ownership, shared outcomes. Delivering value to users faster, safer, and more reliably. One useful way to summarize this is the CALMS idea. Culture, automation, lean, measurement, sharing. Notice what comes first. Culture, not Kubernetes, not pipelines, not tools. This is a mental model that applies everywhere, from junior engineers to directors to entire organizations. When DevOps actually works, it feels like one system. Product, development, operations, security, business, all moving in the same direction, not fighting each other. Tools support that system, but they do not define it. Now let's bust a few myths, because they still trip people up. First myth, DevOps is just CI/CD. No, CI/CD is a practice. DevOps is the mindset that makes it meaningful. Second myth, DevOps means no ops. Wrong. Operations doesn't disappear. Skills blend. Responsibilities are shared. Third myth, DevOps is a job title. Hiring a DevOps engineer to fix everything usually creates a new silo. DevOps isn't a role. It's something the whole organization does together. And one more. DevOps is not the same as Agile. Agile focuses on how software is developed. DevOps extends that thinking into operations, so speed doesn't destroy stability. Now let's bring this into the reality of the current DevOps era. Tools are evolving faster than ever. AI is everywhere. AI-assisted code reviews, AI-generated pipeline suggestions, AI-written infrastructure code. Some teams report massive productivity gains. That's real, but here's the catch. Culture doesn't evolve at the same speed. Organizations change slowly. Habits change slowly. People resist change. So we end up with a dangerous gap. Fast-moving tools and slow-moving culture. And that gap hurts. In recent years, including the mid-2000s, research has shown that AI acts as an amplifier. High-performing teams get even better, but struggling teams struggle faster. Problems don't disappear. They get louder. That's why so many DevOps initiatives stall. Not because the tools are bad, but because the cultural work never happened. In other words, companies bought the how without ever agreeing on the why. To see why this isn't just theory, let's make it concrete. Imagine you're not building software. Imagine you're building a house. The concept is the blueprint. It defines the structure, the load, where everything fits. The tools are the crane, the drill, the hammer. If you only buy tools, but never design a blueprint, you don't get a house. You get noise, dust, confusion. DevOps without concept is exactly that. Lots of activity, very little progress. Here's a practical rule worth remembering. DevOps is 80% people and process and 20% tools. Say it again. 80% people and process. 20% tools. This one sentence alone can save you from many bad projects. Now let's talk about a common failure mode: tool sprawl. Tool sprawl happens when organizations try to fix problems by adding more tools. One team adopts one CI system, another team chooses a different one. Someone adds another observability platform, then another deploy tool. Soon, a single release touches 10 different systems. Integration becomes painful. Context switching explodes. No one sees the whole flow. Automation exists, but it's fragile and surprising. This isn't a technical failure. It's a conceptual one. The tools were chosen without a shared mental model of DevOps. Now zoom out. DevOps as a concept focuses on end-to-end value, from idea to code to running software in production. It cares about outcomes: how often you deploy, how long changes take, how often things break, how fast you recover. These are the DORA metrics. Tools, on the other hand, measure outputs: build times, pipeline success rates, CPU usage, alert counts. Here's an easier way to see the difference. Imagine a restaurant. The outcome is a happy, satisfied guest. The outputs are steaks cooked per hour. You can optimize outputs perfectly and still fail if the food is bad or the service is slow. DevOps works the same way. Outputs matter, but outcomes are the goal. And that distinction is exactly what makes you sound senior in interviews. Now, a quick story. A success story. Think of Netflix. Their principle is simple: you build it, you run it. That's culture. Teams own their services end-to-end: code, monitoring, incidents. On top of that culture, they built tools. The order matters: culture first, tools second. Now, a failure story. A large organization invests millions in modern tooling: platforms, CI servers, monitoring suites. They even hire DevOps engineers. But team structures don't change. Handoffs stay the same. Blame culture survives. The result? Tools exist, but adoption is shallow. Old habits win. The problem isn't the tools. The problem is treating DevOps as implementation instead of concept. It's like buying a Ferrari and never learning how to drive. So how should tools be handled? If culture defines how people work, how do we organize tools so they support that culture instead of replacing it? This is where platform engineering comes in. Instead of every team assembling its own tool puzzle, you build an internal platform, a paved road: opinionated, supported, reliable. Teams keep ownership, but they build on a shared foundation. And the same rule still applies. Without the right culture, platform teams simply become another silo, just with better tooling. When done right, platform engineering connects concept to implementation. It turns DevOps principles into something usable. Tools are still there, but now they are aligned, not random. Let's close with one final mental picture. Imagine 3 circles. The outer circle is culture. Inside that are principles and practices. At the very center are tools. Culture shapes behavior. Principles shape flow. Tools make that flow faster and safer. Tools don't sit outside the system. They sit inside it. So, when you explain DevOps, in interviews, in design discussions, or in real life, speak from the outside in. Culture first, principles second, tools last. Because DevOps is not the tools you buy. DevOps is the way people build, ship, and care for software. Together. End of section 2.1.3.